But let's now welcome on board. We've got with us Mr. Shreevar Kheruka, MD of Borosil, to talk about how their quarter has been. Mr. Kheruka, great to have you today on ET Now. Thank you for your time. Good set of Q4 numbers for you. Your PAT has doubled. Q4 EBITDA margins as well have expanded quite sharply. Tell me, what were the key levers at play and whether you can actually sustain these numbers for FY26 or even better than perhaps?
Well, thanks for having me. And yeah, we've had a good quarter four, and I guess the performance has been sustained on the back of some changes we've made in terms of manufacturing more in India. So we've had margin expansion coming on account of production in India versus imports of product, and that's a trend that I see continuing because more of our product range, almost 65-68% is already made in India, and I think that's going to go to 90% in the next 2 to 3 years. That means that we get the manufacturing margin as well on top of the brand margin that we have. And I expect that in the long run, our margins should expand another 300 to 400 basis points on that account.
Okay. What is coming essentially, I mean, I look at Borosil and I say, okay, these were those test tubes which I would use when I would go to my chemistry lab. And then I say, these are the glasses or glassware I use in the morning when my breakfast is cooked. So which end of the business is growing more for you now?
Well, okay, you're absolutely right. And for most of us, from that age bracket, that's what Borosil would mean. But if you look at it now, what's happened in the last 10 years, we've diversified substantially. So Borosil Limited's business is more a kitchen, everyday use kitchen products business, right from storage containers, which you would store, your your food products in, to appliances, to servingware, to even on the go, storage. For example, lunch boxes, as well as bottles, gym bottles. So it's a really wide range, diversified product category, and that's the consumer business under Borosil Limited. And that range has grown substantially. The revenues have grown substantially over the last 10 years. I think roughly CAGR in the last 8 years is about 28 or 29%, if I'm not mistaken. And we see a lot of growth from movement of plastic to steel and plastic to glass. So we don't work with plastic, we only work with glass and steel as a material. Coming to the other product range, which you mentioned on test tubes, yes, that's a part of Borosil Scientific, which is also a separately listed entity. And even there, obviously the core range was laboratory glassware, what you referred to. But from there, we've diversified substantially to laboratory instrumentation, a lot of import substitution, really making high-end products in India, which substitute imports from Germany, as well as things for pharma packaging, like your COVID vaccine vial is also something that we make. So it's a broad range of products in both these companies, diversified substantially, and I think both have been growing reasonably well in the last decade or so.
Screen in front of me, and we'll stay with that screen. It captures your PAT. From 5 crores to above 30 crores, it has come down. Walk us through that for a business which is predictable, brands which are known, diversification, like you said, is growing. As a viewer or as a shareholder, why is there volatility in the PAT numbers? I mean, there should be more predictability because for me, you are in consumer company now.
Yeah. So that's right. Look, PAT is a function of, firstly, if you look at what you're showing on the screen, there's a seasonality to our business. Okay. So Q3 typically tends to have the highest PAT because of Diwali sales. And if you'll see it, it's the same every year. So I wouldn't say that that within the year is volatility. Within the year is just a seasonal impact of sales that happen. Coming to your question, we are a consumer business, and if you see year on year, rather than look at quarter on quarter, you'll see a substantial improvement in PAT and a reasonably stable level of PAT, and with a growing, I would say, bent. So we are a consumer business. There is predictability on a year-on-year basis, but not necessarily on a quarter-on-quarter basis.
Tell me a little bit more about the domestic appliances vertical that you ventured into. What kind of numbers and what kind of traction are you anticipating there?
So this is a business we entered, was quite some time ago, 7 years ago, and the revenues from this business have picked up substantially. We are in the premium end of the appliance segment, what we call mass premium, And we have a business called non-glassware. It's not very nicely named. I guess we need to change that probably. But the non-glassware part is almost 40% of our revenues. So Borosil as a glass company does about, as a consumer business, does 1100 crores. And this non-glassware, which includes the consumer appliances, is about 40% of the revenues. And we've seen a lot of traction, mainly built on product quality. We do have a premium product quality as well as great after-sales service across the length and breadth of the country. And I hope we'll continue growing that business. We have been outgrowing our peers, although of course our peers are much larger in that space. But in the premium segment, I believe we have a reasonable niche already created.
Tell me one thing, with tariffs at play and things still pretty not at ease when it comes to China and, how the dynamics between China, US, etc. are going to play out in China and the rest of the world as well. Is there any, aberration that you foresee for your supply chain?
Well, as far as tariffs are concerned, our business in consumer is mainly focused on India, and the tariffs could only be I would say, an opportunity for us because, as I said before, we are manufacturing more in India, and therefore there could be opportunities where we can export to the US, which was never under consideration in the past, just because the US was importing everything from China. So if anything, the tariff, at best, it's a positive. At worst, it's neutral for us because there's really no impact to us on this. So I'm not too worried about it. And in any case, it keeps changing on a daily basis. So it's hard to keep up with it even.
Through the macro, perhaps I was saving this big picture question for the last. How would you define the size of the market which you currently have? Glass versus home appliances versus the laboratory or the testing market. Who are your nearest competitor, and at what growth rate do you think you will grow versus the market you represent?
Well, so it's, that's something we think about every day. And in terms of our goal, growing beyond glassware was exactly to increase the TAM, the total addressable market. And now with the product range we have, I believe the TAM is much larger than 20,000 crores, the organized total addressable market, of which we are roughly 1,000 crores. So we're only about 5%. And that market itself is growing at least 10 to 12%, maybe even more on a year-on-year basis because there's switch from plastic to glass already happening. There's unorganized to organized happening. All the things that you already know about. So the focus has been to grow the TAM and play in more product categories, which we are successfully doing. Over and above that, I would say that on the scientific side, with instrumentation coming in, the lab instrumentation, which has also got a TAM of about 5,000 crores, we have increased the TAM. Lab glassware was only 200-300 crores of TAM. Now we've increased the TAM to about 7,000-8,000 crores, where we can play. Out of which we are about 500 crores of revenue on the lab side. So we now have successfully grown the product range. The question is, what pace can we grow? I believe on the consumer side, we have always guided for 15 to 20% CAGR. In the last 8 years, we've been growing at about 28, 29%. Obviously, lower base. Going forward, the base keeps increasing. On the scientific side, I believe we'll be growing at 12 to 15% CAGR, which I think is achievable. As far as competitors are concerned, I believe there are many listed players in this space. I don't even need to name them. There are quite a few very good competitors we have who are extremely solid at what they do, and many of them we look up to, and we see what we can learn from them.
Okay, Shreevar, great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your time today and speaking with us.
Thanks.
That's the word.